It's summer 2001. I'm 29 and living in the Sunset District of San Francisco. I'm on a public bus on my way home from my favorite yoga class. It's one of those buses with some rear-facing seats, so that's where I'm able to find an empty one. A couple of stops later, a loud, drunk-sounding man stumbles onto the bus. He is slurring lewd obscenities, and his volume and tone are impossible to ignore. The energy on the bus quickly becomes palpably thick with unease. I don't want to turn around in my seat to view the situation, as it would call attention to myself, so I just close my eyes and tune into my body's intuition, still freshly accessible from my yoga practice, and check whether or not I feel I'm in danger. I do not, so I continue to observe the scene with my other non-visual senses. The man is rambling and swearing in a mumbling but crude and disturbing way. He starts to direct his energy and words at individual people as he passes them on the bus. I have the impression that he is psychically tuning into their thoughts and their judgments. To one person, he yells a very specific defensive reaction to their judgment, and to the next, he says, "God bless." As my eyes are closed, I too, seemingly in unison, also tune into the cacophony of various thoughts and judgments and prayers that are present in the field on the bus. As the man makes his way further back towards the back of the bus, I'm able to steal a glance at him. And I recognize him right away. A few months ago, I was riding the bus, and this same middle-aged Black man came aboard. He was unkempt and clearly a mentally troubled person, but generally seemed harmless. He sat next to me and, like a child, gleefully did a show and tell around a record album that he had just bought. He was so proud and excited to listen to it. I put aside the conventional city practice of keeping to my own bubble and met him in his enthusiasm. We chatted the whole way downtown. We couldn't have been more different, and yet we made an authentic connection around the love of music, and it genuinely felt good to both of us. So here we are again. The man looks at me this time, at first with his glare of anger, but when our eyes lock briefly, I sense a spark of recognition. I'm not quite sure if it's a literal recognition or a subtle, energetic one, or maybe I'm just passing the test somehow. He moves on and he keeps on with his ranting, but less passionately, and he drops the swearing. I feel connected to this man's psyche. And while there's a small part of me that's fearful that he might escalate and do something violent, there's another larger part of me that's in a state of true empathy for him. I can feel his pain around all the judgments and negative darts that are present on the bus. And I also feel into our shared disdain for the hypocrisy soup that we sane people wade through and maintain in order to fit into society. In my mind, I'm saying, yes, I know you're angry. I get angry too sometimes, livid in fact. Sometimes I wonder what it would be like to scream and yell and call out the bullshit. You're just doing it, that's all. I get it. You are not wrong. Just please watch out for the children here. Don't get yourself in trouble. It's not worth it. It's okay. You're going to be okay. After the next stop, my neighbor leaves his seat and I move to another seat facing forward and closer to the window. The man comes down and sits next to me. He is suddenly silent. I allow for our legs and our arms to touch. We just sit there. I remain in a neutral, meditative state, partially to psychically protect myself. If, like in my imagination, he can really read my mind, I know this is the clearest, safest consciousness to dwell in. But mostly, I find myself just being in the divine oneness that ultimately I am, and that ultimately he is, and that we all are. We are the same. I feel no fear. I, like him, tune into the energy of those around me. Some are looking at me with a smile that says, poor girl having to sit next to the crazy man. Other smiles say that they're with us and appreciate the turn of events. There's a powerful and blissful current of energy exchanging between us. In the silence, I'm sending out pure love, not with any intention of healing or fixing or condescendingly blessing someone less fortunate. In the human realm, I may have more fortune, but in the God realm, we are equally blessed. He has the same access to the divine as I do. I am sending the love from a place of strong appreciation for another being, another miracle, a quite unique manifestation of this shared divine presence. Yes, perhaps he was disconnected from that loving essence when he entered the bus. But so am I often, and so is everyone on the bus. This insanity and forgetting is a shared condition that makes us all human. After 10 minutes of riding in silence, I see that we are close to my stop. I look at him to signal that I'll need to pass. He looks deep into my eyes and says, almost like an angel, "Are you doing okay?" I respond, the first time I say anything out loud on this entire bus ride. "Yeah, I think I'll be okay." As I gingerly maneuver out of my seat and start to make my way up the aisle, I barely but clearly hear him. I hear him whisper, quiet and sweetly under his breath, "I love you." It's spring 2006. I'm 35 and I'm living just outside of Austin, Texas. I'm just returning from Whole Foods back to my suburban neighborhood home. As is often the case, I'm half distracted and anxious around my never-ending to-do list. I open the garage door, speed my car in, and shut the engine off. I spring out, open the trunk of my Jetta sedan, grab way too many bags at once with one arm, and rushedly pull the trunk closed with the other. Slam it good and shut. Ouch! Slam it good and shut on my freaking thumb. The pain is sharp and intense, but so is the horror that's shooting up my spine as I realize what I just did. I automatically pull my hand back, but it won't budge. The trunk was all the way closed and locked. My reflex is to get the key to open it, but I'm quickly reminded that I'm not able to move more than a couple of feet side to side. I am stuck. Genuinely and 100%, no question, stuck. I try not to panic. I tell myself to breathe deeply and try to hold on to some semblance of my center. There needs to be a rational solution. Think, Leanne, think. I feel into the throbbing pain in my thumb. It occurs to me that I may very well lose my thumb in this circumstance. And surprisingly, I'm still able to feel some gratitude, even in this moment. I reassure myself, at least I'll still be able to dance. Thank God for that. I calculate that it'll be 3 hours before my husband comes home from work. I briefly wonder if I could possibly make it that long, but wince at the thought of it. Exaggerated thoughts of bleeding to death or passing out while standing up flash through my mind. I do see that the garage door is actually still open. And it occurs to me that there's another obvious option here, one that my logical mind and self-sufficient nature was ambivalent to consider up till now. I can scream for help. Yes, this is my last resort, with no other composed, rational, self-reliant option here. Alrighty then, this is what I need to do. I take a breath. I get myself ready. The first shout out for help is deliberate and forced. Help! Wow, I am really not very good at this asking for help business. But it doesn't take long for me to get fully into it, and the shrieks get more and more authentic. Weirdly, it doesn't matter if it's my thumb in the trunk or my entire body crushed by a boulder. The screams are equally desperate. Help! Is anyone out there? I need help. I'm stuck. I need someone to come help me. Please help. The pleas come from the very bottom of my soul. After a short while, I hear a call back. I hear you. Where are you? From a house up on the neighboring hill. I yell out my address, and within minutes, my neighbor drives down the hill, comes into my garage, and pushes the release button on the driver's side front door. Click. The trunk pops open, and there's instant relief. Then and there, it's over. Just like that. One easy little button, but a button I couldn't reach. My thumbnail is smashed, but really there isn't any major damage. After awkwardly parting with my neighbors, I continue to bring my groceries in the house in a post-traumatic daze. The physical pain is mostly over, but I'm still completely stirred emotionally. Screaming help as if my life depended on it automatically put me in touch with the pain and terror of pure helplessness. I spend the next several hours letting myself fully go into this catharsis. I wonder how I attracted this situation and what my soul might be trying to show me. Certainly mindfulness and slowing down is a big part of a repeated lesson for me here. It comes to me with all the force of a trunk slamming closed on my thumb, the wake-up call that I have, in fact, been experiencing so much stuckness in many areas of my life. My soul was trying to get through to me about this, but I was stubbornly and unknowingly choosing to suffer alone. Because I was only able to slow down and face my need for interdependence when I got myself in a physical bind, and even then it was an absolute last resort, that's the situation I manifested. As I allow the floodgates of emotion to open, I cry out the unexpressed longing, loneliness, and helplessness that was lodged and skillfully denied for years. And before long, I am not just crying for me. I imagine the deafening and yet unspoken emotional and spiritual cries for help all around me, all the time. I think of how many of us are walking around with a high-functioning, self-sufficient persona or low-functioning asshole persona, while our souls are suffering and silently screaming for release. Just think. The gossipy conversation we overhear in the restroom, the guy who honks at us at the stoplight, the stranger who compliments our hair, the friend who's always canceling at the last minute, the person who seems like she has her act together, the casual text message from a doting friend to see how we are doing, and on and on and on. Perhaps underneath that, what they're really trying to say is help. I need some freaking help. I'm lonely. I feel separate. I want connection, but I'm afraid and I feel helpless and stuck in old stories, old fear patterns, and I really don't know how to do this thing called life. And we are all just reaching out and coping the very best way we know how. Maybe, maybe not. But this possibility reminds me to give people the benefit of the doubt and find deeper compassion all around. It's 2017. I'm at the Violet Crown movie theater in Santa Fe with my 8-year-old son. All of a sudden, He looks at me with a light bulb over his head in a state of epiphany. And he says, "Wow, mommy, I am touching air." And air is touching grandpa in India. So it's like I'm touching grandpa, which means I'm also touching a man shooting a gun right now. And I'm also touching Cam Newton, his football hero. It's like we're all connected. And he looks around the movie theater and he says, "I'm related to everyone in this movie theater. Because if God is our parent and the maker of all humans, then every person here is my brother or sister." It's like the parable of the long spoons, where we are in hell when we try to feed ourselves, and heaven when we learn to feed each other. Here's what I know. Sometimes we are the ones that are stuck. And sometimes we are the ones with access to the release button for another. Sometimes we are the ones who are resourced and centered in the ultimate truth of divinity. And sometimes we are the ones who forget. Sometimes we are the hero. And sometimes we're actually the weapon. And we get confused between the two. And we are, all of us, all the time, whether we know it or not, whether we like it or not, all connected by the air, which pulses with co-created reality and possibility. Over these shared airwaves, and with the power of prayer, to anyone here or anywhere in the world who is silently or not so silently suffering, I send down the aisle of this blessed but bumpy collective ride. I love you.
Leanne, thank you. Thank you for finishing our program with that thought, with that sentiment, with that incredibly heartfelt and lived story.